Welcome back to Net Talk. I'm Mitch.
I'm Alex.
And today we what are we doing?
We are going to cover a little bit of the SV League, which is wrapped up for its first couple of weeks actually now.
Yeah.
We're going to do a little bit of an in-depth on one game that we really wanted to watch and talk about that.
Yeah.
Also, just about what's going on in the world in the international seasons now that they're all
kicking off, and some of them are far more ahead than others.
Yeah.
After my brain fart, we're back. You are recovered after your marathon. I'm recovered after my trip to Adelaide. We're back. We're ready to go. Let's just get straight into it. So in the local season, the local leagues and stuff, MAVSL's wrapped up. Beach season has started. Are you going to play?
Yeah, I'll play around. I haven't played yet.
You trained though?
Other commitments. I did a training.
A single training, yeah.
I think I floated that past the friends being like, how serious is this?
But like that's
Legs felt very heavy.
It's more serious than your marathon because you didn't train for that. So
Yeah.
and then obviously there's no Volleyball Victoria leagues anymore. They're all wrapped up, but the local beach season's underway. I'm probably not going to play. It's not for me.
You'll be there for a couple.
I'll probably get roped in for like one or two. Tournament season is fully kicking gears. I'm going to Bendigo this weekend to play, and I haven't trained at all, so I'm going to be very, very sore.
As good as usual.
Okay, thanks. Moving into the international scene though, lots going on.
So much going on.
But we're gonna rapid fire it just because there's so much and there's not enough time in the episode or just the day to cover everything.
Yeah, you can't even watch it all. It's just too much.
There's too much. It's great. But so the Polish league, the women, they're in round 4. Everyone's played 4 matches. There's a couple that have played 2 or 3. They're just yet to catch up, I guess. I was going to go through the ladder, but I actually don't know if I can pronounce any of these names. So I kind of don't want to embarrass myself. Maybe I'll just put up a graphic on the thing.
Yeah, if how those teams are shaking up.
But like it's hard to sort of make genuine assumptions on what's going to happen. There's a couple teams that are undefeated at the moment. And that one team, the top team, I think it's Lodge. Bud or one, no, I don't even know. They've lost 1 set.
Yeah.
So like, but again, you've only played 4 games.
Yeah, and you don't know who they're playing because if you looked at through the ladder, they might have so far played people that are on the bottom half of the ladder.
Also true.
Like on the men's side.
Yeah, but moving on to the men's side though. So the only thing I know, I think it's Lublin or Lublin, one of the two. That's the team with Leon in it.
Yeah.
And that's like their big signing and their big player. Undefeated. So the men's Polish league, they're in round 8.
Somehow.
I think it's week 8 actually.
Yeah.
But same with the women's. But yeah, so they've played way more games. And looking at the ladder here, nothing super surprising. The usual top teams are sort of in the top team at the top 8 at the moment. Again, super early. But yeah, Lublin, not normally a team that is that high on the ladder, but they're undefeated. They've lost 7 sets though. Yeah, they got Leon.
So the actual team though that is on top of the ladder has lost a game,
but they've
played an extra game because Lublin has had a bye, I guess, or no matchup.
No, so I think Warszawa, I think is the team, Project Warszawa. I think that's the team with like Kevin Tilly and stuff.
Bolads and stuff.
I think that's the one. Again, apologies if I'm pronouncing any of these wrong. But yeah, so they've played an extra game because week 8 is like today.
Yeah.
And I think they played like this morning, which was like their Sunday, which is like the
it's
start
really
of
interesting
each.
trying to work out the times of games. But the Polish league is very interesting, even at this point in the league, because it is a league with relegation. So you can also look at the bottom of the ladder and sort of see how they're shaping up. There's a couple of teams with no wins.
3 teams getting relegated at the end of the season. I think because of the Ukrainian team that has come up. But speaking of the Ukrainian team, they are actually in relegation at the moment.
Territory.
But it's super, super early. That's Lorenzo's team, friend of the show. They've actually won a game. All 3 bottom teams have won a game.
And he got a start recently as well. We'll potentially look at that game in the future.
Yeah. Italian Women's League, 4th round. Yeah, nothing super. Like it's 4, there's a team at the top here. Imoko Volley, I think that's how you...
I think they were the team that won... Oh, no. What was the team that won the preseason tournament? Cogliano,
who
has fallen down the ladder a little bit.
I don't even
It
know.
was them versus someone else in their preseason
I can't even find Cogliano on this.
It might be
unless
it's name, unless that's the name of the sponsor.
Unless that's actually that
the
team.
town. We can
but they're sitting on top.
get that up and we'll pop it up.
They've lost one set. Again, 4 matches. Hard to tell very early on. The men's Superlega, Trentino's at the top at the moment. It's super early. Perugia on third, but like the top 3 teams at the moment have 12 sets for and 3 sets against. All 3 of them. So again, super early. You can't really say much, but the more we do this, the more we'll talk about the teams. If we actually hopefully get chances to watch some of these games and learn. I really want to watch how do you pronounce it?
Conegliano.
I want to watch them quite a bit because they're a team that I've just heard about all the time. And I think, Imoco Volley
Cogliano
is thank you.
The team
that's the team
first, and
that's the team
that
been
dominant. Up the top for a little while. They had a pretty good resume for the last couple of years.
They have 11 titles.
They've been winning the preseason tournaments and stuff, and they've been playing sort of the same team against each other. That's leaving my mind. So I watched them briefly for the start of the season tournament, and they were wicked. Moving on though to the league we're going to cover today. The SV League, the Japanese league. So a new name for it this year.
New sponsorship name.
Just a bit of a change.
I thought it was Super League, but it's not Super League. It's like the sponsor name, which is in Japanese, and Chrome will not translate it for
we've
me.
had lots of interesting fun with Google Translate, we're automatically translating, being like, please.
We're going to have some fun with some stat names and stuff today. So the women's, they have for the most part played 3 games, but they've started round 4, like sort of today or yesterday, because a lot of these teams are on 3 or... No, I lie. They've all played 4 games. I'm just not... Except for one team. Osaka has only played 2 games.
So they must have had a bye.
Assume so. Denso, they're Airy Bees. They are sitting on top of the ladder. I don't know who plays for them because we have not done anything for these teams. The only thing we've done is the match we're going to cover today, which is we'll get to that in a little bit. The men's, the Trailblazers. I can't zoom in on that. Saki, I think Osakai. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Close enough.
They're sitting on top of the ladder with 4 wins. Osaka B, they're sitting second. And then the team we're going to cover today, the JTEKT Stings, Aichi.
Aichi.
They're sitting third. The
Sunbirds fourth. They've got a bit of star power behind them.
Some stacked team. But the team that the JTEKT Stings played was the Nagano Tridents. So we're going to cover that game today. But that's the update on all the leagues. As we get progressive into the season, we'll talk more about the leagues and we'll spend some more time dissecting them a little bit and talking about matchups and stuff. But today, the SV League. Let's start with the SV League. It's a new league. It's been brought to the world stage. It's now on Volleyball World.
Finally on Volleyball World TV. So
we can actually watch it, which is why we know nothing about it.
With an English commentator.
True.
Very nice, because still a lot of their websites are using automatic Google Chrome, just translating.
It's not the best.
So it's a little funny sometimes.
It's not the best.
But the reason why we said one of those teams had played 2 less games because they've potentially had a bye. Format will cover how this league runs. It is back-to-back games, usually on a Saturday, Sunday, occasionally Friday, Monday, looking at the schedule for how those games shook out so far.
The assumption is that it's depending on travel. If the team has to travel a long way,
they get
the extra break in between.
So that's sort of reminiscent of old AVL.
Yeah,
there would be you play the same team twice on a weekend. Potentially you travel, play a team on a Saturday.
And then on the Sunday.
The same team again on the Sunday.
For those who don't know, that's the old school Australian Volleyball League where we used to go home and away series, and it was like you play on the Saturday night and then Sunday morning. I think these games are both nights. I think it's Saturday night, Sunday night, based on the time zones. But 44 games in the season.
Hefty season.
That's a whole lot.
Which I guess means 22 weeks. 22 weekends, maybe 23 if you count people's buys and stuff, because you're playing 2 games a weekend.
It started in first week of October and it's going till April. So someone can do the math.
Maybe I was completely wrong in just halving that, but there's bye weeks and whatnot. And there is an all-star break in the middle of that.
Which is really, because we haven't seen this.
No, there's an all-star game.
But that's sick.
So we'll have a little bit of fun talking about it in our episode later this week about actually their system that they have running, a little bit of a fun game behind it. But there is all-star voting for an all-star team from fans.
And it's also like, we're going to be making a lot of guesses because, again, the app that Alex is using, it's not translated.
Yeah,
I'm using my phone to look at his phone to translate it through.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe with all of our other requests for leagues being on Volleyball World TV, maybe our next request can be that they make an English version. Or we can start learning some Japanese.
I could learn some Japanese. Go back to high school. I could relearn it.
Nah, just download Duolingo.
Yeah.
Okay, so 44 game season, huge season, and then top 8 teams qualify for finals, and then it's best of 3 series for quarters, semis, and the final, which I'm a big fan of. You're a big fan of. It means you get to see the teams play again and again and again, and it's the best of 3. We don't know because we have not been able to watch or follow this league in any other year. So we don't know if they've done this forever or if this is new. We don't know. Same with the 44 game season. Don't know if this is new. Don't know if this is something they've done
we've
forever.
tried to find a manifesto of the league rules and requirements, and it's been tough to find, and or we just see a couple blog posts here and there. So
no relegation that we can see.
Yeah.
But from the research that I did, it's license based. So you have to have certain eligibility requirements to then buy a license. You sort of get accepted or rejected. And then, you're in the league.
Yeah, if you fulfill certain requirements, I think you saw attendance capacity at stadiums.
It's at 5,000.
Certain amount of programs. Yeah.
You need some junior programs.
I think of the game we watched, I think they flashed up a graphic that was in Japanese, but it said 3,800. So I'm going to assume there was 3,800 people there watching.
Yeah.
Which is pretty great to see.
That's huge.
For a game, because the game we'll get to was opening week. So to see those numbers.
Yeah, it's really good.
Opening matches.
The All-Star game you already covered. But that's really exciting. I'm really keen. Just looking, because Australian volleyball compared to the rest of volleyball in the world isn't the greatest. So we're always looking at new ways to breathe, fans and stuff into Australian volleyball. This All-Star game, I tell you what, that's something that I haven't thought of.
I wonder how they'll do teams if there's conferences. Japan's pretty small, so I guess the travel's not too bad anyway.
I don't think there is conferences.
I wonder what determines which All-Star side you're on. Because everyone just seems to be intermingling in who they're playing in the schedule.
It's true.
They do have a funny matrix of the schedule, which looks pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder if it's like a North v South Japan or
maybe it's just like
spread or
fan voting, pure fan voting. Like if you're
fan favorites
in the All-Star 7
hated.
and then if you're in the 7 to 14, you're the B team. Like maybe that's just like that.
Yeah, or maybe 1 and then 2.
Oh yeah,
3
yeah.
Yeah. Be very interesting to see. So we'll be tracking that along when it gets to sort of the All-Star game. I think was scheduled for the end of Jan.
Yeah, I'm very keen to see because that's just cool.
Yeah.
Probably be wild though, and we'll talk about why that game specifically will be wild when we talk about hitting connections in the next bit. But something that was really interesting and that gets talked about a lot in Australian volleyball is the breaks between games and between sets.
Yeah, there's a lot of breaks in the SV League format that actually really slow the game down and let a lot of time for player discussion, coach discussion.
But they fill it. Because I watched the game last night and saw that in between sets 2 and 3, there is like pretty much the equivalent of a halftime show.
Yeah, it felt like a few minutes. Like I had jumped
15,
over the first set break.
Yeah.
And then I was like, got to the second break and I just jumped a couple minutes and then went, it's still going. And then was like, let's really look through this. There's cheerleaders that came out. They made a bit of a show of it. You see people leave the stands probably to go get a drink and come back.
There was like kids trying to pass a ball into a basket. That one prize. I thought that was sick. And then, but it was long. It was like 15, 20 minutes. And I imagine if you're watching on the broadcast network in Japan, there's probably ads.
Localized advertisements and stuff. But now that it is through a paid service of FIVB,
they don't do that.
I wonder if it's similar to when KO gets American sports. It's sort of sometimes the ad transitions are a bit janky because
it's
KO puts in
off
their own ads over the American ads or whatnot. So
it's
that little bit different because there's also breaks with a technical timeout.
Yeah, tech timeouts
at 12. When a team reaches 12, there was a technical timeout, which is really interesting.
Which is like, we haven't seen that. Well, again, if they've been doing it for this long, we don't know if they've been doing it the whole time or not. But in terms of VNL, Olympics, and I don't think tech timeouts have been a thing since like the 2016 Olympic quad.
Yeah.
Like 2016 to 2020. I feel like that was the last time they were a thing.
Because coaches still have access to their 2 usual timeouts.
So you're looking at 3 or like maximum of, what's that,
and I'll
like 5.
Discuss the way it influenced a game.
Yeah.
Because it was very interesting to see them get burned and break, and it maybe not help.
Also, I just looked here, going back to the halftime show, teams have to re-warm up after that too.
Yeah, they do. They come out on stage.
Not a
on
full
court.
Not a full warm up. It's just pepper.
Yeah.
Like on the ground, no jumping, no serving, just pepper and then back on. Unless they did a quick hitting one that wasn't on the camera. We don't know. But we can reach out to a couple of friends that are playing in that league and ask them. Just blitzing through this. Tech timeouts, yep. Interesting. Again, heaps more stoppages with the game, which tells me that maybe people don't really care about the stop starting of volleyball if they're already invested in volleyball.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the Australian audience or at like...
You're trying to attract new fans to watch and they don't really want to hear discussion or look at coaches talk to players. Yeah.
The assumption is we don't think they want the stop start, but maybe if you put on a very, very high quality performance of athletes, maybe they don't care. But it's an interesting, I just remember thinking like, wow, there's a lot of stop starting in this. I don't mind it. I'm a player. I get it. As a player, don't know how I feel about having to re-warm up mid-match. That's interesting. Also don't hate it because if you're 2 sets down or 1 set apiece, you can really
gives a chance to reset.
Yeah, the game can change. Either
also might make it easier to hold your focus if you're doing well.
No, true. Challenge system is slightly different. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so there was actually a point in this game. Usually challenge system, you can only challenge sort of very specific scenarios. Net touches, block touches, I think front court defensive issues, but you can't usually challenge like defensive touches. Not sure if you can do that in this league.
We haven't seen it.
But there was a point in this game where a net touch on Miura was called. They challenged it. It wasn't called. Opposing team challenged it. Got a net touch called, reviewed. First ref goes net touch.
Yeah.
Then the Stings captain went up and spoke to the head ref and said, no way that he touched the net before the ball was down. So I think still within the same challenge, they re-reviewed and verified and the ball was down before the net touch.
Yeah.
So the points went the Stings' way.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to see that it was very fluid. It was a very long break. It ended up feeling like 3-4 minutes because it was a review decision, then another review just confirming within that same challenge that, oh, hey, we might need to look at this again a little bit more in depth.
Yeah.
And it was pretty good to see.
I suppose you do see the occasional counter challenge in the VNL and stuff, but it's rare. And I guess it's interesting because I thought there was a rule about you had to do it within 8 seconds, but then we didn't see. I saw there was quite a good amount of time between a point happening and then a challenge being. Yeah. So maybe they prioritize more like, no, let's get the calls right.
Yeah, which is very fair. You don't want a decision to be influencing the game when you have the technology there to actually really make sure you're getting the correct call. And it's not too long. It's not causing halts in the game and teams only have a certain amount of challenges.
That's true. Well, we actually don't know that. I didn't hear of the commentator mentioning because I know
we're running out. Yeah.
In some leagues you get 3 for the whole match. In other leagues you get 2 per set. You lose it if
it's incorrect.
But the ones where it's like you get 3 for the whole match, you lose it regardless.
Yeah.
I think that's NCAA.
Yeah. And this league does also have something that was introduced to like FIVB stuff was the green card.
Yeah.
Which I personally think is useless. I just think it's really funny that
like it.
You get rewarded for acknowledging an error, but you don't do it until after the other team has already said they're going to challenge it. So it's like, the other coach says, oh, I'm going to challenge that. Then the player goes, are you 100% going to challenge that? Okay, yeah, I did touch it. Because it was really funny because it happened twice in this game, I think.
Yeah.
One was DeFalco getting a touch, but he walked away and then it got challenged and he went, yeah, I did touch it. And then you get the green card as almost a reward. But it's like the outcome, they were already challenging it.
Yeah.
It's just really funny to think.
I guess it's like you're speeding up the game by admitting it. But then it's
kind
of
like...
does
save the 1 minute.
It's true. But then it's kind of like, well, why not just have the honesty policy all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I get like, but not every player agrees with like. There's some players, sometimes myself included, depending on what situation I'm in, where it's like it's not my job to call touches and stuff. It's like we have referees that are for that. Like,
it is, yeah.
It's or net touches and all that sort of stuff. Like, it shouldn't be my job to have to duty and play. Like, I want to just play.
And sometimes you are legitimately focused on too much that you don't even think about raising your hand saying, oh, maybe I clipped the net when I turned around and all this other stuff.
I've had a couple of scenarios where, you know, wearing arm sleeves or compression, you just touch the net, you can barely feel it. And there's also heat of the moment, especially if you've got a middle that's barging you on the block or whatever. Like, sometimes you just don't know. But if you do, it's like, yeah, okay, call it. Also, we don't have challenge systems, so like we don't really call anything. But like, yeah, I see both sides. I don't hate the green card though. I think
it's fine.
It makes sense, like especially because there's also no, like in the VNL this year, there was the automatic line in, line out system, which speeds up the game so much.
Yeah.
Because then you're not challenging every in out ball. The V League doesn't have it. The SV League doesn't have it. So there was a little bit of slowing down, and then their challenge system was a bit slower than the VNL system. But I imagine that's probably a financial thing. Like I imagine the cameras and the operating probably are far higher once you start getting into an automatic in-out.
Yeah, because you are also running that system for a lot more games than what are at VNL.
Also, that's true.
With a longer season.
But, you know, I didn't hate it. The game was a lot slower to watch compared to the other games that we watch, like the Italian League and such. But I didn't hate it. I thought it was good. I thought it was kind of going to that mentality of like quality over quantity.
Yeah.
So don't hate that at all. I think it was good. It was a good quality match. It was just different. Yeah. And I liked it.
This episode is proudly sponsored by the Melbourne University Renegades Volleyball Club, a club we've been a part of for many years.
Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned player, Renegades offers something for everyone.
With programs ranging from Tin Alley Social Competition, which features graded social games, to mixed social training, junior development, or state league teams across all divisions, there's a place for you to grow and compete.
Explore what's available for you, whether it's during the off-season, pre-season, or in-season at members.renegades.com.au. All right, welcome back. Now we're talking about JTEKT Stings versus the Tridents. How do I pronounce that?
Yep. No, that was perfect. Just Stings versus Tridents is good enough, you know?
Yeah. It's just,
Actually, where we looked at the second game of the back-to-back.
Yeah, we looked at the Sunday game, not the Saturday game.
So the Saturday game was actually won by the Sting 3-1.
Yeah.
Versus this game was won 3-1 by the Tridents.
Yeah.
So they did flip it, which is, I guess, the challenge of playing the same team twice.
And that, from memory, that would happen regularly in AVL. Like regularly, would you play a match on the first day and be like, all right, we have a lot more information now of how they play and how we play. So let's change a couple things. And then Sunday, you either got rewarded or you got burnt even more.
Yeah.
Like it was, So interesting.
Because also with these games, a compliment of the SV League is they have a very good match report as well. There's actually two versions of the match report. There's one that has coach closing remarks from, I guess, a post-game interview that must be available somewhere.
Which is a little bit funny when the translation doesn't quite.
Yeah, the translation for the first game made it sound like it was a player.
Yeah. So
being like, I didn't do enough. Blah, blah, blah. But then
maybe it was a player and they just didn't add it.
Second one was definitely a coach because it was talking about we need to do this at training, but we had a lot of stuff. So in the first game, well, a player we have watched and love a lot is on the Stings team is TJ DeFalco.
Yeah.
His connection with Sakita has been a bit shaky. This was the first round, first two games, but across both games it was a bit shaky.
A bit hit and miss. The commentator mentioned it a lot as well. So I was like, okay, I'm not the only one thinking about it.
I mean, he did tip or hard tip, aggressive tip, play
a lot.
Roundhouse and windmill a lot, especially across that first like sort of two sets. I wonder if it's sort of a difference in the American style versus the Japanese style. I think maybe when I watch Japanese outsides, Ishikawa and like Ran, they cope a little bit better with a little bit more variation in the set, inside, tight, off the net.
Yeah.
Versus DeFalco maybe is running a bit of a faster tempo.
Really, really fast
So
ball.
in these breaks, you can see a lot of the time Sakita talking to DeFalco, telling him actually when to go.
Or
you can see those.
There's a lot of conversation happening between them, which is like what you would expect. Also, like I don't think they've ever played together before. In other clubs and stuff. Not that I could find, because DeFalco's been in Poland for majority of his professional career. I think he had one season in the Italian league after Long Beach. But yeah, I think from looking at it, and it was hard because the camera angles were always chopping and changing, which is kind of why I like just either it's at the back of the court or it's at the side of the court.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, like what kind of view you like, because some people really like the scout view.
I like the scout
back
view,
of the court,
but you still lose a lot of information.
Yeah,
but like when you look at the scout view, width is really good. Right, like width on everything is good. Like you can see the blocking, you can see the defensive movements, you can see the width that setters get and stuff like that. But then you lose a lot of the depth. And I actually think the issue with the Sekita and DeFalco looks like it's depth because when I'm looking at it from the side, especially the times where he hit or tipped, it was very clear that ball's behind where he's running. So he's tipping or he's doing that over the shoulder thing. And when he's whacking it, it's because it's in front of him. Like it's funny, you see here. This is cool about the Japanese statisticians is that they include the backcourt attacks as a separate column. So you can actually see that DeFalco is far more effective backcourt than he is frontcourt. But that was pretty obvious when you see Sekita setting the pipe and it's always going to be in front of DeFalco as opposed to that frontcourt ball, which can have way more variation.
Time out.
Yeah, go.
This is me inserting myself into this segment with a timeout. So we're going to look at something as well.
Yeah.
Because the pipe usage is something not a lot of these Japanese teams use. I looked across other match reports because it does have very isolated backcourt statistics.
Yeah.
Mostly it's just the opposite that's used in the backcourt. All right?
Yeah.
But DeFalco uses it very effectively and a lot. But he was playing close to the setter across those first 3 sets.
Yeah.
Does shifting him to be then playing far from the setter allow you to run that pipe a little bit more? Because it is when your setter is front court, DeFalco would then be back court. Didn't seem to really work out very well in that 4th set.
Yeah.
But he was playing close to the setter, first 3.
Yeah.
When you're close to the setter, you're back court at the same time as the setter. So you have 3 front court options.
Yeah.
Versus when you're pushed to far, there's that little bit more distance between you.
That's a good question. And I actually don't have a verifiable answer other than to say that I actually think it revolves more around the middle than it does around the opposite being front or back. Because at this level, having a front court opposite or a back court opposite is like negligible, right?
Yeah, the opposit's used at the same rate.
Yeah, like you're seeing an opposite hit back A's the same as they would hit front court balls realistically.
Yeah, I mean, Miura, maybe half as many, but like they're getting used a lot still in the backcourt, or Ulrich Stahl for the other team is used backcourt an absurd amount.
Yeah, but depending on the team, and this actually doesn't have starting rotations.
It is in the other version, and all their numbers are at the top, but you have to translate the numbers, which sometimes is
fun. But that was the other thing I realized. So again, Alex and I are learning this league. We're fairly new to it. There's a name here. Yeah, Kentaro Takahashi. So he's probably the 3rd/2nd middle on the Japanese national team. He didn't play this match. Traditionally, coaches put their top middle or their most aggressive middle next to the setter. So in 6. So which means the DeFalco would be next to them. So you could argue that potentially that would make the pipe harder because the quote unquote, not that any middle at that level is going to be worse or better.
Yeah.
Well, there is, but like the worst middle is in front court. So maybe not going to draw the block for the pipe.
Yeah.
However, and I remember this because the commentator mentioned it, but almost every single time DeFalco ran that pipe, he had no block.
Yeah, there was a lot of open looks there because maybe it's not so used. I looked through other match reports and it was really maybe 1 or 2, but DeFalco was hitting 10.
Yeah. Also, I think that speaks more about Sekita than it does about DeFalco because every time I saw them run it, it was actually a behind pipe, not an in front pipe.
Yeah.
A lot of times Sekita gets pushed towards position 4 and they actually had that scout view camera playing because you watched DeFalco run because you see the middle get sucked in a little bit,
Yeah.
and then DeFalco runs and just banging that ball 5-6.
It was a thing that they looked like they had a good connection on, and DeFalco was able to be used sort of in system in that way.
Yeah.
Versus their opposite, we looked at and sort of saw that he was being used a little bit more on those harder balls, the longer option.
Yeah.
Maybe because Miura and Sakita have a better connection, longer relationship,
Right.
national team.
They certainly do. Because he was,
He had a
very
couple
good opposite.
phases of low efficiency, high error rate portions of the game. But he was getting a lot of difficult looks.
I do think because DeFalco wasn't that good, and this is into our next topic as well, because DeFalco wasn't that good, Miura had to pick it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was good. For the amount of, like, seeing 28 balls and hitting at 50% kill efficiency is pretty good considering what DeFalco had 35 and was at 54, which is actually still pretty good for a pass hitter. But everyone else on their team, other than middles, is well and truly below that mark. So it's tough when you've only got those two guys hitting it that much. Also, no one else is above 12 attempts. Everyone else is 12 and below, whereas DeFalco and Miura is
At 28
and 35.
DeFalco also had a lot of weight on serve reception with a lot of being targeted a little bit. Like he was the highest targeted player with 30 receptions. It was interesting to see his passing wasn't great. Well, it was either perfect or not great. He had a third of those were perfect, but then he only had 3 that were positive. So his efficiency is at 38%.
Yeah.
But I think that's also maybe why he was used in system a lot, is because he would get a perfect pass and transition.
And then have an
and he
easier
has
time.
a pretty good inside-out transition here and there.
Very, very good.
Like, so he is making those opportunities available for himself.
Yeah. Also, timeout. This is my timeout, which I didn't tell you about because I just thought about it. This is maybe a bit of context for us reading out the stats, is that Alex and I have actually not really been taught how to read stats. We have been playing at a high level for a long time, so we have a good understanding of this. But the one thing that I think you and I maybe not struggle on is like timing. There's no like perceived timing on when these stats do and don't occur. We're just doing the eye test and matching it with this. But yeah, when you're looking at things like DeFalco hitting 35 balls, honestly, looking at the game yesterday, I thought he was pretty bad. Just because like with Sakita, the matchup's not quite there. He just didn't look like normal TJ DeFalco. But then when you look at this and you go, 35 balls at 54% efficiency, you kind of go, oh, that's pretty good. But then they end up losing. But I just wanted to make note of the fact that like there's a lot of this stuff within context that is still very new to me, but like how to apply it. So like there's things that we'll get wrong. But I think the main point is like, I guess if you're listening to us, I understand that we're new, we're going to get things wrong, but our best guess is always going to be go and watch what actually happens. That's more important than reading a stat sheet and going, this A, Y, Z. Like, also because there's a lot of information that's still missing, like defensive touches, setting attempts, soft blocks, recycle balls, stuff like that TJ's actually like really good at.
Yeah, because he did end up over the course of a 4-set game making 4 errors as an attacker, or I guess, maybe the backcourt error is included in that. But it just seemed a bit disjointed, which is what we're trying to match with the numbers.
Yeah.
And maybe like we haven't spoken about their middles, but their middles did get used a decent amount.
Yeah.
But it was sort of their middles were just used as we're going to keep you honest. Yeah. It wasn't a middle-centric attack. It was kind of their stick hitters and then...
And that was the same for the other team too. I'm just looking at like... Honestly, the other team's distribution was interesting.
Yeah, the Nagano Tridents were very similar in actually flipped. I mean, DeFalco had the highest usage, but as a pass hitter, and Miura as opposite second. But the Nagano Tridents are a very opposite heavy team with Ulrich Dahl,
who is very good,
who was amazing this game. I think that was the difference between this game and the game earlier in the matchup. Yeah. earlier in the weekend because he was a little bit more error prone in that earlier game.
Yeah.
But he was very solid in this game, except for in the set they lost. I did note down that it
got
kind of
blocked.
appeared like he got frozen out of the game.
Yeah.
The Nagano setter, Hayasaka, doesn't mind resetting a player.
No.
Across from what I was seeing, like he was going back to Ulrich.
Yeah.
But there was a point where he got blocked, I think 2 or 3 times across a 6-point span.
Yeah.
And then it felt like he wasn't really set again. And then it went to him towards the end when they probably would need him to be their big player. And there was a couple errors there too.
Yeah.
So that was the set that they lost. So it was almost he got caught off guard and then just couldn't really be there in that set.
Yeah.
Because maybe he'd been frozen out of the game. But the other players were pretty darn good in those moments, so they were still close.
Yeah.
Their other pass hitter, Yuji Kudo, was their second highest used player.
He was really good. And
Yeah.
the commentator, because like we didn't get to watch the first game, like the Saturday game, but the commentator kept mentioning like him playing really well took a lot of the weight off Dahl, who now they could spread out the offense a little bit more.
And very good on serve in terms of the break points he afforded to him. He got to serve 21 times, the highest serving player
out of anyone.
Oh, actually, yeah. I mean, DeFalco actually served 22 times for them, but 21 times, the highest server on the Nagano Tridents, because when he was backcourt as well, I think that front court was a very good blocking lineup. It was Ulrich, I think Australian Trent O'Day was in that blocking lineup, and they were very effective as blockers. Something not necessarily reflected on the stat sheet because they technically lose in kill blocks, but I think they got a lot more block touches and recycles, and their defense worked well off those higher block touches.
I remember seeing
getting them in system.
I remember seeing DeFalco hit into the block regularly, and it just would go high to 6.
Yeah.
High to 6, and then they run fast offense. And that was when they used their middles a lot in the transition. Also of note here, looking at these serving stats, so the Stings had 18 service errors, whereas the Tridents only had 13, but the Tridents had 7 aces to 2.
Yeah.
So like massive difference.
A lot more service pressure. Ulrich Dahl did a lot of work there in terms of aces.
Yeah. But look, as I said earlier, like interesting match. I was sort of surprised at both teams' distribution. It's very 2-pronged offense.
Yeah.
Like it's very much main pass hitter opposite, and that's it for both teams. Which I don't know if that's just happened to be these two teams that we just happened to watch, or if that is maybe a theme throughout the SV league.
And you live and die by that. So a point of note was the fourth set. Coaches really try and find ways to influence the game. There's only so many ways you can do that. So the Sting their coach had used all their timeouts before even reaching the technical timeout.
Yeah.
I think they were 4-0 down in the fourth set, timeout. Then I think it was like 9-5 timeout.
Really?
Then at the tech timeout, it was 12, I think still 6.
Yeah.
So they had lots of breaks to really try and reset and turn up for that
But they just didn't.
fourth set, but they just couldn't really will it out of the players, which is, you can only do so much. There was a couple good subs, but I think their only influential sub for the Sting was their other opposite.
Yeah.
So you're taking off Sakita and Miura. It was Miura's sort of lull to put on another setter and your second opposite.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to do that because you're taking off two very high pedigree players that you trust, that you would normally just want your best on court.
Just to stay there and go to work.
To try and mix it up and put on another player who had great influence, but is just very tough to do.
I actually fell asleep in the fourth set. Whoopsie. I was watching it very late last night. But yeah, no, I agree. And then I think that raises some questions, genuine questions. It's just like we assume there must be some kind of injury because we didn't see Lucarelli. I think JTEKT Stings look terrifyingly different if Lucarelli and TJ DeFalco are on the court at the same time with Miura. I think that's disgusting. But don't know why we haven't seen him. We can confirm to 80% accuracy that there is no visible foreigner limit to the amount of foreigners you can have registered on a team. For foreigners on court, you can have 3. So, and that's a little bit different as well. So you can have 2 non-Asian Federation players, and you can have 3 if one of them is an Asian Federation player. So a Korean, Philippine,
or
Australian. Yeah. So we believe that is the rule. And also looking at other teams, that seems to be consistent. So we assume that Lucarelli must have some sort of niggle or small injury, or is being load managed, because he did come on for 4 points.
In the second week he played, only got like 4 attacks. He subbed on twice across the game. Which is interesting. Maybe it's just a transition period thing. Yeah.
Another thing that I want to mention as well before we wrap up here is that I only mention this because I follow TJ DeFalco on Instagram, but he sort of insinuated in one of his Instagram stories that like it's a rest week, thank God, which means that like maybe he's not used to this load. Like maybe, because I also did think of that in the game. I was like, he just looks tired. Like he genuinely just looked exhausted, or he just mentally was given up in the 3rd/4th before I fell asleep, because I was pretty tired. But yeah, I wonder if the back-to-back games are. I don't want to say
load to the body.
I don't want to say he's not used to it, because my assumption is that like VNL's it's not back to back, but it's like day and then daybreak, and then, or it can be day and then like the next day. Like it's, I guess, 20 hours or so. But yeah, so maybe that's why. And that's something but they've only lost 1 game.
Yeah, I mean,
they're not panicking or anything, but it was an interesting game.
I mean, they're now only 4 games into the season, so like
super
2
early.
weekends. It's very early, and maybe the body acclimatizes to that and gets used to it, because it is just a different sort of state you put your body in.
Yeah. I also really like this V-League website. It's super, super easy just to go and look at team rosters and just go, yeah, sick. Like, yeah, so Lucarelli's, I wonder if I click on him, will it tell me if he's injured?
Just gives you their background.
Does not tell me that.
It is a nice site. Like it would be great to see that still develop in volleyball, because proof that we're in a very transition period of volleyball is it's really good to see that this is now on VBTV.
Yeah.
With English commentary.
Yeah.
For us international viewers.
Yeah.
To finally get to watch the V-League, the SV League. Like, because this is these players have been on these teams for a couple of years. It's DeFalco's first year.
Yeah.
Coming from the Plus Liga, but Trent O'Day, an Australian, this is the first full time I've been able to watch him, because he's been in there for 2 years. He's been there since last year, but wasn't accessible easily in previous years.
Yeah.
Which is just really good to see. And then it's like, hopefully those next tier for people that are really wanting to get invested comes out to see injury reports, lineup news, trades, all that sort of stuff.
Because it's like now that we've that game, closing thoughts of that game, interesting, enjoyed it, learned a lot about like just those 2 teams in particular. But looking at the SV League as a whole, like other questions is looking at the Centauri Sunbirds, one of my favorite players, Alexander Slivka, isn't playing at the moment. I don't know if it's injury. I don't know if it's the foreigner limit. Like maybe the foreigner limit that I have found is wrong or out of date, because he's playing with Dmitry Mazursky in his team. So that's another disgusting team in terms of like you have Ran Takahashi, you have Alexander Slivka, and you have Dmitry Mazursky. That's your 3 wing hitters, which is filthy to think about. There's another team that I wanted to mention. Might be the Osaka team, because I'm pretty sure that's...
Or the Wolf Dogs have like Namir.
Yeah.
He's on the Wolf Dogs with Tina Erno.
Yeah.
Although like Tina Erno didn't start for a couple of their sets in that game, but made late appearances and started in the final set of that game, which is just really interesting to see.
Oh, this is
because there must be certain things that they're juggling.
Yeah, another thing that's disgusting. And this is actually proof that, not proof. I haven't watched the full game, so I actually don't know full context whether these players were subbing for each other or not. The Panasonic Panthers, Thomas Jeschke, Yuji Nishida, and Miguel Lopez are the three. So that's 2 foreigners on the court at the same time. I believe they're on the court at the same time. I'm pretty sure I've seen them on the court at the same time. Also, Lauren Tilley as a coach. So that's another disgusting team. And they have Yamamoto as a libero.
Yeah.
So like defensively, gross. Yeah. Who's their setter?
We're looking at this team earlier with the little fun video game app that they've got that I'm talking about for 20 minutes in this Friday episode. 100%.
Yeah, go nuts. That's fun. And I want to look at this Nippon team, Nippon Steel. They're meant to be Polonsky from Argentina is in this team. I don't really know anyone else in this team. No, sorry. There's one more team I wanted to. Wait, who's it? So where's Nimir?
He's on the Wolf Dogs.
Wolf Dogs
with Tina Urno. Trying to.
Urinat or
Urno. Tina Urno.
Yeah, the Slovenian.
Yeah, Slovenian pass hitter with Chebulj.
That's why I couldn't recognize Nimir because he had hair.
Yeah,
I was looking at the footage and I was like, that's not Nimir. No, it is Nimir. Yeah, that's kind of a gross team as well. Who would be their second outside? I'm assuming it's Takanashi Kenta, the captain. He used to be in the national team for Japan, and then we haven't seen him a whole lot since like Kai, that young, really like 20-year-old came in. And, but anyways, so interesting game. It was cool. Honestly, the best part about it was just the fact that we get to watch the Japanese league, which is a sick league. And I really appreciated how much of a show it was. Like, yes, it was stop-start, which is something that we're not super accustomed to because the conversation is always, but how can we remove the breaks? How can we speed up the game? Like it's all, and the AVL, like it's always, all right, no timeouts, 6 subs is normal for international leagues. 1 minute between sets or 2 or whatever it is. And yeah, like super short. Like it's always.
But it is good. It builds a bit of anticipation for points and a little bit more just like.
I like the quality over quantity thing. Not that it's quantity. Maybe it's like speed as opposed to quantity. But like I like it. And watching it, I think, and this is something you can't really criticize Volleyball World because they've put it on their thing. But I imagine that if you're watching that, because when they did the halftime show, you've just got the high camera in the corner that's just like that's the halftime show for anyone watching on BBTV. But imagine if you're there / if you're in Japan watching on the broadcast, it's either ads or you get a really interactive halftime show where the cameras are there. I could see people walking with microphones and talking to the kids and you could hear them through the audio of like the stadium. So it'd be cool if like VBTV next year could like hijack that broadcast so we could get a halftime show as well, rather than just watching it from afar and hearing like, but
because you can give player analysis, talk about other matches in the league. Other sports will do that during halftime breaks.
That's true.
We'll talk about what else is happening at the same time because some of these games do overlap or happen in rapid succession, which is why it's so hard to watch because there's so much volleyball on. But
I also, NCAA does that quite well, where they talk about other games and other matchups and season statistics and stuff like that. But like I really appreciated let's not rush. Let's just have the volleyball like players play 50-50 on the halftime. The fact that the players have to re-warm up. Like I think that's fine. I don't know if that would suck for the players or not. Like trying to think about the only thing I can relate that to is like tournament volleyball where you play a game for an hour and then you have like half an hour break until you play the next game.
Like, well, like a beach volleyball round, I basically cut the warm up out by the last of it because it's like I'll just do my stretching and roll through and just touch the ball. Yeah, and then you're back into it. So maybe like because warming up becomes easier and easier as you've been playing. You just need to just touch the ball and
like we've never played at that level. So like I wonder if it's easier or harder.
Yeah,
maybe I don't know. Anyways, we hope you appreciate. This is the first time we've done an episode like this. So tell us what you think. Do you like it? Do you hate it?
Any insight that you've got from watching games, other games that we haven't seen,
and if
maybe things you're seeing occur in the game, trends and whatnot.
Yeah, and also if like as my time out earlier, like Alex and I are new-ish to like the full stats analysis side of volleyball. If there's things that we've gotten wrong or maybe like you have some more context on, like some of the things that are really funny in this is like goals conceded.
Yeah, an error is translated to goals conceded. Yeah, it's very like, funny.
And like it's like, oh, and then like decision rate. Like what is
like, and serving has a stat which is just translated to effect, which I assume is forcing a negative reception and or positive serving outcome.
Yeah.
Because there is total serves, score, goals conceded, which I'll assume is still errors because that's what it has tracked with the other stats.
Yeah.
Effect and then effectiveness rate. Which is good to see.
Yeah, like, if Alex and I get it wrong, we're okay with that. We're new, but like feel free to reach out, comment, let us know like what specifically or context or like whatever it is. Like we are just here to learn and enjoy and teach as much as we can. So let us know how we did. Let us know maybe what games or leagues we want. We're not always going to do the V League. We want to do some Polish leagues. We want to do some Italian leagues. Those are the only 3 leagues we're probably going to cover. If I can find the Turkish league, there's some games of that I want to watch.
Now that we've said it, it'll be on VBTV next week.
Maybe, maybe that's the play. We just
keep watching international volleyball and looking at the next level of the game outside of just those big VNL and Olympic events, because this is where players are made and develop and really show their skill in longer formats, in longer seasons.
Yeah. It's also just sometimes more entertaining. Because like at the end of club seasons, and clubs often look better than international teams because they just, I don't know, that's maybe a wild take, but like whatever. We appreciate you tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's ep. Catch us on all the social medias and things like that. Make sure you're subscribed and you like the video if you're on YouTube, and if you give us 4 or 5 stars, preferably 5 on Spotify.
I wouldn't have made 4 stars an option. Come on.
Sorry. We'll catch you on the Friday episode.
Thank you very much.
Bye for now.